Hey, 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 everybody. Let's make sure that we are all good to go here as we are getting live. Yep, all right. I'm going to apologize in advance for any background AC noise that you may be getting as a little buzz or whatever, but it's too hot for me to be able to do this show in my home without the AC on. So I've tried to lower the gain on the mic a little bit and bring it up to myself here, so you're mostly getting my voice, but if there's any little stuff going on there, then that's what's going on. Now let's go ahead and, before I do anything else, this being our weekly Q&A show, let me get the Q&A portion of this going. Start Q&A there, please. Put your questions here. All right, good. So we've got that up. Good, as usual. Let's throw that up on the screen there so I can see them as they come in. Okay, great. We're all set up here. Very happy to be here with you guys today on this July 13th in the year of our Lord, 2025. And which Lord am I referring to? The Gnostic, what is it, monad? or the Krishna God, or Christian, or whatever. I don't even know. But I guess if I'm saying 2025, then that would be the, Christian era or whatever, common era. All right, let's flip over to the chat screen so we can see y'all's comments as we're going along here. I have, of course, some things to share. I always like to quote Vlad Vexler in these troubled times that we seem to be living in. Don't confuse impossible and hard. I was talking with someone this week, and I was also wanting to share that, we can be real champions at stopping ourselves and blame all of life and other people and other things for, what we run into or what we smack up against. And it's a fine line sometimes, isn't it? Because sometimes people are trying to stop us and people do get in our way, and things are caused by other people that just make us not able to get things done. So that's true. That's a true thing. And yet at the same time, we run into too much of that, or too many instances of that in our lives, and we start stopping ourselves before we let ourselves get going. And I just thought, let me just throw that out there, not go on some big, long, huge monologue about it, but just remind everybody that, don't stop yourself. Don't learn that wrong lesson. It's a bad lesson to learn. Because you're probably capable of great things and certainly good things. And there's no reason why you can't have good things, or you can't make good things happen for yourself and for people around you. But if you don't start, or you're not willing to get up and go or do something about that, and then you can be sure it will never happen. So just a little motivation 101 today. I could probably say a lot more about that, but I'm trying to stay concise and to the point. As always, it's a struggle. It's my big struggle session, is talking too much versus and making the points I want to make versus over making the points I want to make. Okay, now we have some classic Benson cam to share, so let me pop over here and throw that up on the screen. This is pretty much, this is an older video of Benson today, but this is pretty much what he looks like right now. He's a little fuzz monster. He's going to be getting his haircut this coming up week. We've got him scheduled for his grooming. So but that's almost, I could have taken that this morning, because that's exactly what he's what he's looking like right now. My little fuzz monster bundle of joy that he is. Let me, yeah. Anyway, so, oh, I really love my dog. I just, I just do. He's just such a cutie. He's not always the most well-behaved cutie, but he can be such a. When he wants something, he definitely lets you know he wants it. But we can't help ourselves. Mel and I mean, probably the thing we tell him more often is, "Oh my God, you are so cute. How are you this cute? How is this even a thing?" You know? Okay, let's pop back over here. Um, anyway, I love sharing my dog with you guys. I just do. All right, now let's. Yeah. Okay. Good. So put your questions in that question box for me if you have any. Um, you may have noticed, by the way, this last week that I have started cracking the code on doing YouTube Shorts. And you're going to be seeing a lot more of those. I'm going to try to get in my sort of production line. Monday is a just to give you guys a little behind the scenes for a moment. Every Monday is kind of a big production day for me because Sunday here I do this show and it's live and I can't download it or do anything really with it or edit it until Monday. And so on Monday morning I usually cut out the little time at the beginning with the music and stuff. I just chop that off so it gets right, so when people go to my Q&As they get right to the actual video part. And then being invaded by spiders all week. It's been wild here. So spiders everywhere. And so hot. Anyway, so yeah, on Mondays I do the Q&A editing, and then I go through and I put all the timestamps in for all the questions y'all ask me, so that when you go to my Q&As, if you ever look them up, you'll see that every question you guys ask me in these lives is timestamped. So you can go right to whatever the question is that you're most interested in. And that usually takes me, a half hour or something, right, to go through it, maybe 45 minutes, and put all that in there. And then I edit my show with Tony and post that, try to get that up by noon. And then I go back to my earlier Q&As and pull out the clips for my Critical Clips channel. If you guys don't know, I have another YouTube channel called Critical Clips, where I just have posted full answers from earlier episodes of Q&A shows or bits and pieces out of podcasts or shows that I've done, and post them up as a clip. And those are not shorts. I've just put that whole other YouTube channel there, and 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, a clip posts every day around noon is when I try to time it. Sometimes I'm late, sometimes, right, than other days, but I try to keep it around there. And those are all shared on Patreon as well with my Patreon supporters. So they get, on Monday when I download the Q&A show, I upload it to Patreon with no ads. So you can watch the entire thing on Patreon, no ad interruptions. Same with with my show with Tony. I also load that up on Patreon, so my Patreon supporters can watch my stuff without YouTube's nonsensical constant interruptions. I mean, obviously part of my income is ad revenue, so I need ads to show during my videos, but YouTube over the last few years has been making that untenably ridiculous with how many ads they put on, right? How many commercials they throw into the shows. And I try to keep it moderate conservative on my settings so that it's not interrupted too much. I'm just giving you a whole little briefing here today because I've never broken all this down, but now that the YouTube Shorts are coming into the production line, usually between the Q&A show, the Tony show, and the clips, that's a good chunk of my Monday production time. But now I'm going to add in trying to pull out these shorts, and YouTube Shorts can only be 3 minutes long, so I can't do full answers all the time. and pull them out as a short. So I have to edit. It's a little bit more editing, and also it's a vertical format, so I have to edit it a different way than I edit my clips. And blah blah blah, right? But that's now going to be part of my production on Mondays and maybe Tuesdays, so that I can get, maybe I'm thinking 4 or 5, at the most, if that many, shorts pulled out of my content and shared with you guys or with the world as well. And hopefully that will result in a little bit more attention and love from YouTube for my channel, because I realized that it's been, my channel has been out here for years, and I really don't know how YouTube classifies my work. I've had a lot of different stuff on this channel. For a period of time, I was even posting movie reviews, right? So, YouTube kind of likes to put you in a niche, and that way they know who to recommend you to and how to attract people to your channel. But if you mix it up too much, and I have in the past, then it gets a little random as to who gets recommended to your stuff, and also and that keeps the viewership low. It's not everybody's on the same playing field on YouTube, and if you just throw videos out, then it recommends it to everybody in the same way. It doesn't quite work that way, and you're always trying to crack the code of YouTube, So, so anyway, that's some little stuff that I'm working on. But you'll see, I'm trying to go through. I started at Q&A 501 and started pulling shorts out of those, and so I'm going to catch up on those so that I get up to present time, and then every week I can just keep it current, and that way you'll have that to look for. Anyway, so there you go. And yes, I am enjoying the wardrobe review and switch over, the revision of my lifestyle choices. It was the heat that really made me change it up and start going Hawaiian. Sort of the Hawaiian look, really, because these things are airy and comfy. And I get to wear them untucked and all that, and so I gotta, because when this summer has been hot. I don't know where you are, if it's been that way, but America's definitely having I'm reading that we're having a really big heat wave right now, and like all over the country, and and one point of view is, wow, it's never been so hot everywhere all the time. And another point of view is, get used to it, because this is the coolest it's going to be moving into the future as things on this planet heat up. And unfortunately, our governments, especially here, are completely uninterested in doing much of anything to anticipate, deal with, handle things so that the future temperature rises won't be will be mitigated. They're not doing a lot to mitigate that. Not compared to, there are things happening. No question. I'm not trying to say nothing's happening, but the current administration certainly is absolutely not interested in any way, shape, or form in doing much of anything to protect us as the citizens of this country from the rising heat. And so and the weather events, right? They don't even understand it, and they don't want to, they don't care to. So that's a problem. All right, so this being a oh, thank you, Love Food Kitchen. Yeah, I really did enjoy doing those movie reviews. I really did. But yeah, I'm not, unless you're, I guess, like I said, unless you really focus on that as your niche, and that's just what you do, and you somehow get, go viral with 1 or 2 of them or something, you're just another person in the space. And I didn't want to be that, so I stopped doing those. But all right, well, let's go ahead and get on with your questions here. I believe this is our first one. Let's pop this up on the screen here. Make sure. Yeah. All right. Young Matador. Hey, Chris, a true life author in the UK got busted for faking her novel last week. Oh, didn't know that. Some commentators have said that self-help / real life book trends have aspects of cult behavior. Your thoughts? Okay. Well, not knowing a lot about this, I will certainly agree that cults of personality, or, you know, the celebrity phenomena of fans and how they will become quite fanatical about their favorite author, favorite actor, favorite director, favorite, you know, movie star, whatever, favorite genre, I suppose. You know, that happens, right? That happens. Self-help and real-life book trends. Okay, I thought of something this morning, another thing to share with y'all, right? A real simple little way of encapsulating a lot of discussion points is to say tribalism plus trauma equals toxicity. You know? That might be very appropriate to the answer to this. Because tribalism is its own thing, and it's not, we can use the word culty or cultic to talk about tribalism, but tribalism doesn't require a cult leader in order to exist. We can divide people up, and social experiments have been done in social science to show that you can divide people up on eye color. You know, the blue-eyed people over there, the brown-eyed people over there, right? You can divide people up by shirts and skins. You can divide people up by skin color. You can divide them up by brand of shoe they're wearing. I mean, however you divide people up, you create a tribe. And certainly in the self-help, you know, true life book community, you could divide people up by their favorite self-help author or influencer, right? And people will get tribal. And they'll start, well, my tribe's better than your tribe. My method's better than your method, right? My guy knows more than your gal does, or vice versa, right? This is human behavior 101. I mean, we've always been like this. This is not something you have to induce in people. We naturally do it. It's very, very organic to us. We love it. We love doing that, right? Because it creates conflict, which creates some fun, which can create some sportsmanship, teammanship. You know, it's us versus them. And when it's at the level of healthy competition, it's great, right? It's a lot of fun, and you can have winners and losers and prizes and all kinds of fun stuff. But of course, it can become toxic, and that toxicity comes, I believe, mainly from when people bring their trauma into the picture, or predators, conversely, bring in their malintent, shall we say, their desire to lord over or dominate other people, which is not always something that comes from trauma. There are some people who are simply born in a kind of broken way. They want to, or they get off on hurting other people, or dominating other people, or they think that that's their job, or that's their mission in life. And so you enter that into the mix, and you're going to get, you know, a toxic stew. On the other hand, you have people, many, many, many more people, who just bring their trauma into the mix because they're going through life and they've had some bad experiences. And those bad experiences have taught them maybe lessons in how to not be compassionate or how to not be tolerant of other different points of view. And so they get hostile easily. And that the tribalism gets riled up by such people very, very easily. I've referred to this in the past in a very unpopular way when I talked about trauma drama in the ex-Scientology space. And yet, that's exactly what it is. You know, people get dramatic about, you know, things and what's doing that. Why are they like that? Well, they're not predatory jerks. They just bring in their trauma to the game, and they're kind of spewing it all over other people and blaming all of them for, you know, really it's a them issue, but they're making it out that it's everybody else's fault. And that's rough. That sucks when that happens. So I think that's some comments I can make about that, right? Yeah, I think that's pretty much the most productive thing I could say about all that off the top of my head. You let me know if there's any more you want me to talk about with that. But again, I'm trying to get a little more concise in my answers and not ramble. So let's move on. Angry Chode. What's the, don't let me forget, by the way, I've got 3 questions preloaded for us today as well from emails that I've received. You can, let me turn this off for a second. You can email me with questions that you have for me if you want me to take them up on the show here, or you think of them midweek, or you think of something you think I should be talking about. Feel free to email me. Some of the live streams I've done and some of the content that I produce on this channel has been because somebody emailed me and said, I think you should talk about this. And I went, God damn, you're right, I should talk about that. and away we went, right? And so I am wide open to your suggestions. So please do send them to me. Remember, the email is askchrisshelton@gmail.com. And that is in the description section of all of my videos. Okay, so let's go ahead and get back to this question here. We have an Angry Chode medley here. What's the scariest disease in your opinion? Do you like or dislike Pokemon? What is a false purpose rundown in the Scientology? Okay, great. You always get such fun questions for me, Chode. The scariest disease in your opinion? Oh, I'll tell you. The one that scares me the most, maybe it's not a disease, but it is an invasion of the body, is the flesh-eating bacteria. Oh my God, that just scares the hell out of me. I mean, like, oh, Jesus, you know, there was a book I read, I grew up on Stephen King. You know, I read thousands of books when I was a kid. I was just voracious, right? Me, Mr. Hyper-Focus, ADHD-er as a kid, and I was a nerdy, geeky kid, and so books were my friends, and I loved reading, but I really got into Stephen King. And, come on, who was the other, okay, let me, Peter Stroud. Okay, so, because Stroud and King wrote, The Talisman, which I am absolutely shocked has not been made into a movie yet. It would be an amazing series on Netflix or, Apple Plus or something. Apple Plus would probably do a better job with it. But The Talisman is a fantastic series waiting to happen, and I can't believe it hasn't been produced yet. But Stroud was a horror author. He wrote Ghost Story and some other really wild books of horror. And one of them, let me look it up here, because I'm forgetting the name of this. Floating Dragon was the name of the book. And I can't remember why it was called Floating Dragon, but it was, it had a supernatural entity. But was that the one with the, maybe not. Maybe it wasn't Floating Dragon. Maybe it was another one that Stroud wrote. But he wrote a story, okay, and in the story, people's skin melted. Right? There was this disease going around where basically their skin liquefied. And they just melted, right? I mean, and it was slow. It was a slower process. It took days, or maybe a couple weeks. And there were people going to the hospital, and they could not figure out what was going on. And these people just literally melted. It was gross. It was so gross. And I always remembered it. Right? I think I read that book when I was like, 12 or 13 or something, and. Yeah, so that kind of disease terrifies me. Do you like or dislike? Okay, getting back to this. Do you like or dislike Pokemon? I am not into Pokemon at all. So I guess you could say I dislike it. I don't like it. It's not my thing. It ain't my jam. I'm not at all interested in it, and I never have been. It's just such child product brand marketing. It's so blatant, I mean, as an adult, I look at it and I'm just like, Jesus, really? It's kind of like Magic the Gathering. I really got into that game for a while until I couldn't control my anger at losing. And this is one of the things that learning about rejection sensitivity dysphoria really clued me in on. Why is it that I can't play games like Magic the Gathering, is because I just absolutely get so mad when I'm got this whole strategy and got this whole thing ready to rock with that. I put all this time into these decks, and you spend money on these things because it's a money thing, right? And that's what I'm connecting the dots to with Pokemon is, it's spend, spend, spend. You got to collect them all. Don't you know? You got to get them all, right? And it just keeps coming out with more and more product. That's how I understand Pokemon to operate, and that's certainly how Magic the Gathering's, product continuity works, is you just have to keep buying their shit, and they've created a competition rule set that demands that you keep buying their shit. And after about 3 seasons of trying to keep up with Magic the Gathering, right, I was like, oh, I see what's going on here. This is a money pit. I'm endlessly going to be throwing money at this company, because that's how they market their stuff, and that's how the rules work in order to play at a competitive level in this Magic the Gathering world. And I was like, nah, I'm out. I'm out of here. So, yeah. Yeah. Salt Path. Okay, good. Thanks for letting me know about that. I'll have to look that up. I'm going to note that down just because I'm curious now. Matador, Salt Path. Maybe I'll have something more specific and intelligent to say about that after I look that up. Okay, now, what is a false purpose rundown in Scientology? Okay, so let's talk about this for a sec. The false purpose rundown was created or issued in 1984. I honestly wonder whether L. Ron Hubbard had anything to do with developing it, but it is probably based on notes Hubbard made. I mean, remember, this is 2 years before Hubbard died in 1986, and in 1984, Hubbard was far from a lucid investigator of the human mind, right? He was hiding up in Creston, California, and he was losing his goddamn mind. And he was deep, deep, deep into his own paranoid delusions. And this is the time period when he was asking Sarge, I think, to make him an e-meter that would basically kill him, right? Remember that whole story about how the body thetans were coming for him, right? And he wanted this e-meter that would be so strong it would deliver an electric shock that would basically kill him, right? And Sarge was like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to do that. So that was Hubbard's state of mind at that time, and yet in 1984 we have this series of bulletins issued in Scientology about this new auditing rundown. And a rundown is a series of actions that you do. It's not just something you would finish off usually in one session. It's a series of sessions that are going to be required in order to deliver all the actions. And the false purpose rundown is a style of auditing that builds on security checking. And what it does is it looks for and is supposed to eliminate or erase not only the overts, the sins that you've committed, which is what a security check is about, but it goes deeper and it goes whole track. It goes back into the past lives. So as to get to the underlying evil purpose or destructive intention that prompts a person to commit these overts in the first place. Everything in Scientology comes down to postulates and misunderstood words. That's an interesting concept, isn't it? I always thought it was. Once I figured that out, when I was still in Scientology, I kind of figured that out. And it's held true all the way throughout the time I've been an ex-Scientologist and learned about the OT levels, and all the way up to OT8, and the superpower, and all the stuff that you do in Scientology. If you're looking for a bottom line, why is it that spiritual beings are so screwed up? It comes down to those two things. At the bottom of the bottom of the bottom of the bottom of the barrel are your postulates, the things that you intend to create or create is a postulate, right? It's a sort of a decision, or did I say decision? A creation of a thetan, right? Because a thetan creates by postulates. A thetan says, okay, the sky's going to be blue, and boom, the sky's blue. That's a postulate. That's how Hubbard defines this thing. I want to get a job, so I'm going to get the exact statement of the postulate would be, I'm going to get this job, the specific job I'm looking at, right? I'm going to get this marketing job. Or you could make it a more broad statement. I'm going to get a job in marketing. And that's all boom, that's the decision, that's the postulate. And based on that decision, life will wrap itself around you and deliver that postulate to make it true. Sure enough, you get an offer for a job, it's in marketing. Hey, boom, look at that, my postulate worked. A thetan creates by postulates. And evil purposes and destructive intentions are postulates. They're things the thetan decided long ago as a response to a confusion that they ran into. The thetan was bipping around in a life or in space or doing whatever the thetan was doing, and it ran into something that confused the hell out of it. A misunderstood word, a misunderstood concept or idea, something that confused the thetan. And in response to that confusion, the thetan created a postulate to destroy or be evil in response to that. So the false purpose rundown, and this is all false purpose rundown, what I'm telling you right now. This is at the bottom of every chain of overts. As you guys know, with Scientology auditing, you sit in a room with the e-meter and the auditor asks you questions, and in security checking, the questions are all about the sins you've committed. And a normal sec check is just asking for stuff you did this lifetime mostly. Maybe you go past track into the past lives, and maybe you don't. It doesn't really, it's not important. It's the present time stuff, the stuff you've done this lifetime, that they're most interested in when you're doing a security check. Also called a confessional. But with false purpose rundown, there's this additional steps. So you do the security check and you take the overt chain, the series of overts that are earlier similar, as I think you guys know about, right? I ask you for, have you ever, stolen an apple? And you say, yeah, I stole an apple last week. Good, ... and we get all the specifics of it. But now I'm going to ask you for an earlier similar overt, right? And because the needle on the e-meter is not yet doing this floating thing, right? And so we've got earlier stuff that we're going to look for. Is there an earlier similar time you stole an apple? Oh, yeah, I stole an apple when I was 20 years old from the grocer. I was hungry, blah, 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 when was it, where was it, how was it? And they're writing all this stuff down. and the needle is still not floating. Okay, is there an earlier similar time you stole an apple? Yeah, when I was 10, I stole an apple from Farmer John's orchard. Okay, good. Da 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 dee 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 do da da da. We get all the specifics, right? Needle's still not floating. All right, is there an earlier similar? So this is a chain of overts. And you'll take those earlier, and this is how you go past life, right? As you get to a point where you don't have any more this lifetime, so you're going to start looking earlier, and you're going to start making shit up, basically, is the real objective truth of this. But, you know, you're going to go earlier, similar to past lives. With the false purpose rundown, it is absolutely expected that you're going to go past life, because you want to take it all the way back down to, you know, the millions of years ago when you made what you do is you get down to the end of the overt chain, and the needle floats, and we're all done with the overts now, and the last one you gave off was, you know, 20 million years ago, I stole an apple by you know, I don't know, blowing up an apple orchard or some shit, right? Like, you know, they tend to get exaggeratedly ridiculous the earlier down the track you go. You're not, it's a funny thing in Scientology that the earlier track stuff tends to be this really big, gnarly stuff, right? Blowing up planets and shit like that. So you get whatever you get to, earlier similar. But then the additional question that's asked is, you go, okay, good. So we wrapped up all the overts. Now, was there some evil purpose or destructive intention that prompted you to commit that overt? Right? And the auditor is looking for a reaction on the e-meter. And this is what makes it the false purpose rundown, is you're asking this question. And the guy goes, oh yeah, I had the evil intention to wipe out all apples. I wanted every apple in the universe gone. No more apples, right? Just gone. Just forget it. And okay, good. So that was the evil purpose or destructive intention. And then you get, and I can't remember the wording for this, but was there some confusion that occurred before that, right? You're looking for the prior confusion. And the confusion is the thing that's holding the evil purpose in place. So while I can't remember the exact wording of the question, you're looking for that prior confusion. And by finding it and then going earlier similar, if need be, right, to earlier times of confusion, not earlier similar evil purposes, but earlier similar times of confusion, right? You get those given off, right? Yeah, I was really confused by why all these people on this planet really liked apples, because I hate apples, and it really bugged me that they all liked apples, right? It was really confusing to me, or whatever the person's answer is. And you get that down, and you get the confusions off until needle floats, right? And at that point, the evil purpose is supposed to vanish and be gone, and you're no longer going to be prompted by that evil purpose or destructive intention to do bad things to apples, right? That's the idea. The false purpose rundown is how you deal with overts on the RPF, right? Everything was done FPRD style is what they call it, because you can take any sec check. They're almost always a pre-written form of questions. There's tens of them in Scientology of pre-written security check forms, from the Johannesburg sec check, which was the very first one, to the child sec check, the whole track sec check. And there then are specific forms that were put together specifically for the false purpose rundown style of auditing, which are the FPRD sec checks, right? And those are dynamic sec checks, where there's a whole one about the first dynamic, about yourself, the second dynamic having to do with sex and family and stuff, third dynamic having to do with groups and work and stuff like that, all the way through to the eighth dynamic. You have all these different pre-written forms that you can run on a person. And the false purpose rundown has a general form, which is this big long form with all kinds of generalized questions that they ask you that are going to be run FPRD style, right? Where they're going to take it back to the evil purpose and to the prior confusion. So basically, that's your big rundown on the false purpose rundown. All right. Oh, Dominic, thank you for that super chat question. If you can, throw that into the question box. I appreciate the super chat, and I will. Let me pull this off the screen. And yeah, see if you can get that into the question box so I can throw it up on the screen. But well, it's there anyway. I'll just go ahead and answer it from the super chat since you paid me for that. I don't want to make a bunch of trouble for my super chatters. Dominic Smith here is asking, this affected Scientology policies becoming more aggressive, controlling, brutal, etc., implying if he avoided it, we'd have a more benign version. Based on your research, is there any truth to this? I can't see if there was an earlier comment there. I'm not sure what the earlier beginning on your question was, Dominic. So I hope I don't mess this up in saying that I don't think there ever could have been a more benign version of Scientology from L. Ron Hubbard. We know that L. Ron Hubbard did not have people's best interests in mind. L. Ron Hubbard had the idea that he wanted people to be his slaves, and he created a system of psychological enslavement, and that is what Scientology is. It's a strong description. It's strong wording, right? People hear that and they're like, mental enslavement, what? You know, I mean, I used to have that reaction, so I understand that people can have that reaction to it. But I thought it was just a set of tools to help you in your life, and it doesn't sound that bad to me. Okay. No, it is that bad. And Scientology is designed to entrap you with an unbelievable number of double binds, right, that are created in it. Double binds being mutually exclusive rules, things that can't fit together, that don't go together, they contradict one another. You know, Scientology, one of the best and easiest examples is the creed of the Church of Scientology specifically states that people have the inalienable right to think freely, talk freely, write freely in their own opinions, and counter or utter or write upon the opinions of others. In other words, you get to say and think what you want. That you're free to do that, and that right is inalienable to you. Nobody can take it away. That's one end of the double bind. The other end of the double bind is if you break the rules of Scientology, or you question them too hard, or you question the leadership of Scientology too hard, you'll get kicked out, and there are things that you must not and cannot ever say or think or do in Scientology about the subject of Scientology itself mainly, or its leadership, right? You can't criticize L. Ron Hubbard openly and routinely and blatantly. You cannot criticize or blatantly disagree with David Miscavige without getting into a lot of trouble. These two things don't go together. That's by design. It's not an accident that Scientology is built that way. And there are probably thousands, certainly hundreds, of such double binds that make up the framework of Scientology. So there's no getting around that. It is impossible to be a Scientologist in the Church of Scientology without complying with or conforming to that system of thought. And so there is no benign version of that. It's in the DNA of Scientology at every level of it. The public Scientologists experience a less assaulting version of that, I guess you could say, than the staff, and the staff experience less rigorous version of that than the Sea Org. And I was at all the levels, so I get to say stuff like that, right? And so the Sea Org has it the hardest when it comes to the double binds, but every level of Scientology, you're going to experience this over and over and over and over again. It's built into the system. And it was built that way on purpose by L. Ron Hubbard to enslave people, to create confusions and problems and issues that demand nothing but conformity to the system. And it's not the system that's ever wrong. It's always you who are wrong if you don't kowtow to the system. So that's why I would say that. So I'm not answering your question, so cool. That was my effort. Put it in the question box. instead of the comments as I ask people to do, and that way I don't waste everybody's time. Okay, cool. Let's carry on. Stuart Gorman, loving the collaborations lately. Are you planning more in the near future, and what would be your dream guest topic, etc.? Oh, good. Somebody asked about Bryce Blankenangle, by the way, and yeah, we are going to be doing more. We're working that out right now. Okay, so yes, I do want to do more collaborations, for sure. Yes, I'm going to do more with Bryce and Shannon about the Mormon stuff. I definitely, we have a lot more to talk about. I watched the entire, since this is coming up and you're asking, and I just want to dish on this. I recently watched a series called American Primeval, which prominently features the Mormons from around the period of 1850. Brigham Young is a key character, historical figure in this series. It was on Netflix, I think, about a year ago or so, and I finally caught up and watched the whole thing, and it was an amazingly well-produced show. Really showed how brutal the American frontier was, and the conflict between the Native Americans and the settlers and the Mormons in Utah at that time when they were trying to settle Utah and the Mormons were taking the place over. It was a really good show. Not historically accurate, unfortunately. There was a lot of liberties taken with the history, but tonally, I thought it nailed it. And it was also a pretty good story in between. There were a couple of things I was a little like, really, but the main theme of the show I really liked. I'm bringing all this up because I really want to discuss the show with Bryce and Shannon, right? So we'll see if they want to do that, or because there's the Meadows Mountain Massacre is a key plot point of the show, and again, they don't show in a historically accurate way how that massacre happened, but it's a key plot point of the show that it did happen, and I'm wondering about that. And how that period of history is taught to Mormons. I really want to talk to Bryce and Shannon about that. I've also got a reach out right now to the Cults and Consciousness channel. She's also an ex-Mo. I hope to be able to collaborate with her. And I've reached out to some other people. I've also hopefully got some pretty good interviews coming up on my podcast that I think you guys are going to like. So yeah. And as far as my dream guest or topic, ooh, that's a good question. Let me think about that for a second. Let's see. I would have said for a long time, that Neil deGrasse Tyson would be an awesome person to collaborate with, but I've watched enough of his podcast that I don't really like his interview style, so I don't know that I'd want to do a conversation or a podcast. I mean, I would obviously leap at the chance if somebody said, hey, you want to go be on Neil deGrasse Tyson's podcast, right? Star Talk, I think it's called, or something. That'd be fun. That'd be fun. But it's kind of like watching Howard Stern interview people, right? It's just constantly interrupting, and I know I've been accused of that too. So I can't exactly, pot, meet, kettle. I get it. Sometimes I've been a little, too enthusiastic when I've been interviewing people myself, but I do have that criticism of Neil deGrasse Tyson's interview style. Let's see, though. Who else would be? Obviously, if I could interview David Miscavige, that would be fucking amazing. I got so many questions for that guy. I'm trying to keep it to like real people I could do stuff with. Yeah. I don't know. Tom Cruise. Elizabeth Moss. Oh, I'd love to talk to her about Handmaid's Tale and Scientology. That'd be fun. Again, you know, these are just dreams, but since you asked. All right. And I'm sure you guys are going to throw names in the comment section that I'm not thinking of right now that I absolutely would leap at. You know, there's a bunch of people I would very, very much like to speak with. I mean, shit. You know, AOC would be fun. Just for just to go in that direction. Pete Buttigieg, that'd be interesting. Because I have questions for these guys. I have challenging questions for them. You know, I'm not happy with the Dems right now, not at all. Obviously, I'm not happy with the GOP or the cult that it has become. You know, of Trump. But I am very, very, very unhappy with the Dems right now too. So I have some very sharp and pointed questions I'd like to ask those guys about. All right, let's move on here. OBG Foster, will the Church of Scientology take a political stand now that churches can endorse candidates without risking their tax-exempt status? That's a great, great question. If y'all don't know, the Johnson Amendment was a rule that was put in place quite some time ago that kept the IRS from, or kept tax-exempt organizations, churches specifically, from promoting or endorsing political candidates. Now, I looked it up because this last week, the IRS stated explicitly that they were not going to be enforcing or doing anything to enforce that rule anymore, and that churches were free to endorse or take a stand on political candidates, and the IRS was going to do nothing about that. It's in the 501c3 tax code that churches or that tax-exempt organizations, religious organizations, not be political. They can have political discussions. They can have political opinions as an organization, but they cannot endorse specific political candidates. Well, guess what? The IRS has never really had any example in their history of seriously enforcing that rule. Right? Nobody's ever been prosecuted for it. There have been fines issued here and there in a handful of cases that I could find. If I'm wrong about this, go ahead and correct me in the comments, but this is when I looked it up, this is what I found out. And therefore, this change is really just the IRS saying what they've always been doing, which is absolutely nothing to stop churches from being political bodies and endorsing candidates from the pulpit. Now, this to me is one of the most egregious things that a church can be involved in. But that ship sailed back in the 1980s. Doesn't matter what I think or you think or anybody thinks. Churches are political institutions if they choose to be, and the moral majority made sure that the evangelical community of the American states, especially in the Bible Belt, became political entities. The separation of church and state is a joke in the United States. It's a fucking joke. And anybody who thinks that we have a separation of church and state is simply delusional. There is no separation. I cannot stress this enough, especially now. Our country is now having its policies, executive orders, and major internal operations decided by religious fanatics. You can look to my recent podcasts with Dr. Clint Haycock, where we go into specifics about Project Esther, for example. That's just one example. The entire Heritage Foundation Project 2025 thing that you guys have heard about, maybe you're sick of it, maybe you think it's a joke, maybe you think we don't know what we're talking about. We do. And the Heritage Foundation is a religion-first institute that is led by and creates its policy around religious extremism. So the IRS this week basically announced that they're not going to do anything about that. I had to kind of contextualize all that to answer this question because I wanted you guys to understand the magnitude of the problem. It's huge. So now we come to a cult like Scientology, which is basically a pretty pipsqueak cult in the bigger picture of things compared to the power of what the Heritage Foundation can do as a political 501c3, or not 501c3, but as a nonprofit, right? Compared to what evangelical churches do and their membership and how they preach from the pulpit, political endorsements, right, and take political positions. Scientology doesn't hold a candle to that activity. But will David Miscavige now be interested in taking a stand, endorsing candidates? I doubt it. I doubt it. If you want to make gadzoogles of money in this country, you don't go political, because you want to be an equal opportunity con artist, and you want to rip off people of all political persuasions. And Scientology does that, and it does it as effectively as it can, right? You will find every kind of person of every political persuasion in Scientology. They will tend over time to become more politically conservative because L. Ron Hubbard had politically conservative / libertarian views about taxation, and it was always, taxation's always theft to L. Ron Hubbard. About government, about big government, no government should be small, government shouldn't be interfering in your life. Hubbard didn't want anybody lording over him. He wanted all the power. So politics to him, he interpreted through a lens of power. And he didn't want anybody to be in a position of power over him, including the government. So he would try to use the mechanisms of government to take out his enemies, and he would try to otherwise avoid paying taxes or having anything to do with getting much involved in America politically. Now, he tried in his later, in a later time period, once he had basically skipped out of America in the late 60s, and when he went over to St. Hill in the UK, he did not get involved in UK politics that I know of. He had a lot of critical statements to make about the British Prime Minister and the British system and various political figures in Britain because he was getting a lot of guff, right? A lot of pushback from the British government. And he then went down to Rhodesia and tried to take that place over, wrote a constitution, tried to engage in some political machinations down there. And Hubbard was a political moron, right? He didn't know how to make his way around in politics any more than Elon Musk does, right? Very parallel personalities, Elon Musk and L. Ron Hubbard, in a lot of ways. And this is one of those ways. When they get involved in politics, they are not just a bull in a china shop, they are a flamethrower in a tissue paper factory. You know? They will just, it's scorched earth, man. They will just destroy everything around them out of pure ineptitude. I mean, you and I understand more about politics than Elon Musk ever will. The guy's a complete political moron. Anyway, but L. Ron Hubbard, same thing, right? So he thinks he's going to go down and do this and do that and do the other thing. And yeah, no, that didn't work out at all. They booted his ass out of Rhodesia right quick. And his passport wasn't renewed, and they got rid of him, right? Because he was... he was just not what they wanted. So that's kind of Scientology's history, dabbling in politics directly, right? Hubbard didn't really try after that. Not that I can remember right now. And he just railed against governments and said his solution after that was to go Fabian, as he put it, right? Where we as the Sea Org, we will just randomly appear and disappear and nobody knows where we are or what we're doing, and we're just going to be this overwhelming force. Yeah, sure, Ron. So that was so Hubbard basically kind of ejected out of the political world. And I don't think David Miscavige has a whole lot of interest in diving into it. Joy Vila's interviews about this, her statements about this, according to what Tony has told me, have been very, very interesting, because she was trying and vying for political influence and position with the Trump administration, and Scientology got in her way and stopped her. They were not at all interested in her working or doing that stuff. And she was all the way into, like, you should run for Congress and you would get the support of Trump, and the White House had her, she had their attention. And Scientology didn't try to capitalize on that at all. And in fact, put roadblocks in her way, kept her from doing things that would have advanced a political career for her. And I found that absolutely fascinating. Now, we have Trish Duggan, who's on the board of the America First Policy Institute and is one of Trump's major donors. But is she politically active? Not so much, right? She's got her little goofy museum down in Florida. She's kind of arty-farty. You can watch what she has to say about stuff in her, I'm a Scientologist video. Trish Duggan's not a politically savvy operator. She has a lot of money and she throws it around to causes that she likes, and she gets influenced that way, right? But it doesn't appear that she's some Linda McMahon, for example, right? She's more of a political operator. She's in that world. She wants to be in that world. She throws money at that world, and she wants to change and do things, right? And she's part of Trump's administration. She's also, Linda McMahon, is also part of the whole America First Policy Institute, right? Then you have like Grant Cardone. Well, Grant Cardone is not particularly politically savvy or active, other than, like Trish Duggan, throwing money at stuff like Trump and speaking at his rallies and doing things like that so that he can get attention. I was concerned for a few months that Cardone and Trish Duggan and John P. Coates, which is what was Gretchen, what's her name's husband, who's also in Trump's administration. He was one of the Hungarian Ukrainian negotiators, and I think he's somehow involved with the Department of State Department, right? I was concerned that that was something that the church was involved in or wanted to be involved in or was pushing for White House influence. I don't think that's the case as I sit here right now. Could it turn or change tomorrow? Could David Miscavige become politically interested and activated? Sure, of course he could. But I don't see right now that he is. It seems to me that if he were, we would be seeing and hearing more from Trish Duggan on the political side of things, from Grant Cardone, who has got one of the biggest mouths on the internet, right? Grant Cardone can't shut up about all the shit Grant Cardone wants to do and care about. And I haven't heard or seen him say anything in an openly political direction. Again, if I'm missing something, please let me know. This is something I'm interested in and want to know about. So if I'm off about anything I'm saying here right now, feel free to correct me. I'm just taking in information, data points, and processing it, as I see it. And so I don't think, on answering this question, that David Miscavige is going to get openly political. What David Miscavige wants is happy whales, right? He wants his big money donors to be happy with him, with Scientology, with the gains that they're getting in their auditing and throwing money at the church to support it and keep it going. And I don't think he personally cares what side or end of the political spectrum they're on. I've never seen him issue a public statement that would indicate any favoritism toward any political party or side of the political spectrum. He's above all that, right? Scientology's whole attitude is we are above the government. We're going to be the government someday. Hubbard specifically says we're going to be running things one day. So that's why I don't, that's the reason why I think if Miscavige is reasoning his way through how to deal with politics, that's the position from which he's reasoning. Big long answer, but that's what I could say about that, all of that. Yeah, I think that's all true. Okay. Now let's get to, let me turn that one off, and let's get to our preset questions, because I don't want to forget these. Greta Van Susteren, thank you. You're right. I'm always saying Gretchen. You're absolutely right. Thank you for correcting me on that. Greta Van Susteren. I very rarely think about that woman, so that's why I mess up her name all the time. Thank you. Okay, Gene Kenny asks, recently saw a clip where you said that the start of your OT training while in the Sea Org was interrupted by your phone sex scandal / RPF. All true. Could you speculate what your reaction to the body thetans / Xenu story might have different had your... Okay, yeah, I just copy pasted this right from the email. I should have corrected some of the grammar here. Anyway, might have been different had you gone through OT 1 and 2. How different at all compared to finding out about OT 3 after leaving the Sea Org? This is a tough question for me to answer, actually. This is one of the toughest ones for me to answer that I've ever been asked, because I don't know how I would have reacted to it, except to say that I'm positive I would have made it make sense. And that would have been a tough thing for me to do, because I would have been curious about things. I would not have been so curious as to fact check L. Ron Hubbard. In that, I would not have looked up when did, Las Palmas and when did the volcanoes around the Earth come into being, and then thought to myself, oh, well, L. Ron Hubbard clearly has it wrong because none of those geographical, structures existed, 75 million years ago, right? Or they weren't in the same place. The Polaris was not the North Star 76 million years ago. It was a different star that stood in that position in the sky, right? But Hubbard specifically says Polaris, the North Star, right? And so he's factually wrong in his OT3 narrative. But would I have known that? Would I have looked that up? Would I have done any of that in trying to understand the material, or would I have just accepted it? I think I would have accepted it. And I think the reason why is for the same kind of reasons that I try to explain to people now, why the historical narrative of Xenu is the least important part of OT3. And I'll just say again real fast, right? It's the least important part. Nobody in Scientology gives a shit about Xenu. It's not important. The body thetans, that's what's important. The fact that this great catastrophe occurred in this sector of the universe and trillions of thetans were imploded, basically, right? Their bodies blown up, and they were implanted for 36 days by Xenu and his band of renegades, and a lot of thetans didn't react well to that whole thing, to say the least. And they clustered, right? They came together in this semi-conscious, unconscious state and glued onto, so to speak, you and me, right? Because we're the thetans who are still somewhat operational. They checked out, right? The thetans that have clustered and the body thetans, they're not operating the same way you and I are. They're not off getting their own bodies. They're stuck to us. So, so that's the important part, and that's the part I would have been paying more attention to as a Scientologist, because the auditing processes of OT3 aren't about learning about, thinking about Xenu. It's about contacting these body thetans and exorcising, right? You engage in a little exorcism, right? You're going to drive those spirits off of you and rehabilitate them and send them on their way. And through this activity, you are directly contributing to saving the world, right? By producing more theta than N theta, right? You're taking these thetans who are in this N theta state, and you're releasing them and turning them back into little thetans, right? Little theta. So that's probably how I would have thought about that whole thing and would have responded to it. Yeah, so that's what I can say about that. All right, let's go back to our chat screen here. How we doing? Wow, I can't believe how fast time flies when we are doing this. Peter Anderson puts a comment here. There's an article and video suggesting Grant Cardone might run for governor of California. God damn. Well, maybe he does have political aspirations then. Wouldn't that be interesting? I guess we're going to have to see what Scientology does about that, aren't we? That'll be interesting. Let's see how that plays out. Okay. Anthony Spurgeon asks, do you believe Trump was directly involved in Epstein's criminal enterprise? Yes, of course I do. Of course, it's obvious. The videos showing Trump and Epstein together, and Trump directly saying Epstein was his good friend, right? Something like that. I mean, of course he was. Donald Trump is a scumbag of the highest order and a pedophile and a horrible, horrible, horrible sexual predator. He's not now. He's too old for that shit now. But back when he was, partying with Epstein, the man's a complete sexual criminal. Absolutely. Yeah. I absolutely believe that that's the case. Okay. Katie Dodson. Hi, Chris. I recently ran across a channel called SnakeSpeak. Wondering if you or any others have bumped into it. Nah, never heard of it. Seems very woo, word salad genre, new cult on the horizon maybe. Hey, fair enough. I'm guessing it has something to do with talking to snakes. Go out on a limb here. Let me take a very quick look. SnakeSpeak, YouTube. Okay, Snake Talk. Talking with snakes. Let me just take a quick look here at this channel. 50,000 subscribers, 109 videos. Our book and library are available now. How to stop believing the voice that calls itself you. This is their intro video. Your thoughts whisper they're you, but are they? This exploration unmasks the inner voice, revealing its fleeting nature. Dive into the space before I arises where true awareness dwells. Okay. 3 months ago, being nobody while you were never born and still you watch. The hardest thing to do is nothing. The secret hiding in your bathroom mirror. Being nobody while paying the bills. These are just titles I'm reading of their YouTube videos that they've posted here. These are like various length, 15, 13, 17-minute videos. Don't take it personally can actually free you. You're already enlightened. You just don't know it yet. Failing at enlightenment is a good thing. Everyone you see is you, but how? Okay. Few 100,000 views on all of these things. No, those ones I was just reading from are only 1.5. They uploaded a video 5 hours ago. It's got 1,500 views. But 6 months ago, they've got who is the mind talking to? It's so simple, you will laugh. Your only job is to let the universe take over. 4 months ago, 212,000 views. All right. Well, I'm obviously not going to sit here and watch one of these videos right now, but could this develop into a cult? Sure. Will it? Is it? I can't say right now. The titles of these videos don't impress me, but I don't know what their basic theme or point is beyond you don't exist, which is an interesting idea. I happen to think you do exist, by the way. Just as a point. All right. Let us flip back over to our preset questions because I want to get through these. This next one. Pardon me. Come on up on the screen here. Oh. I'm on the wrong screen. There we go. Sorry about that, guys. Richard Larson, I saw in a video that you have some color blindness. Shouldn't Scientology processing or auditing or whatever have been able to fix this? Didn't anyone think of this? Okay, it's a great question. And you're absolutely right. Scientology auditing should have and could have addressed my color blindness. Whether it would have cured it or not, highly doubtful. Color blindness is not generally a psychosomatic condition that you can just think away. But yes, they could have done auditing on me to address the color blindness, but nobody was motivated to do so. When that part of that story was that I was in trouble. I was working at Bridge Publications, and I was in the doghouse because I was messing up printings of book covers because I couldn't see or differentiate the gold, what's the word? Covering, right? The gold printing from a coppery color, right? The gold foil. Yeah, foil. That was the word. We were foil stamping gold foil onto the covers of certain books. And there was also silver foil. And I had a very, very hard time differentiating that gold foil from a copper yellow color. And they are definitely different. I mean, I understand, I can appreciate the difference between those things, but I couldn't see the difference. And so that was wasting money and time, right? Because you have, as a book printer or cover printer, you know, you run off 1,000 or 500 of these at a time, and you know, we had to color print the book cover, and then it got to the stage where you'd stamp the foil on, and if you mess it up, they got to reprint all that shit. So you're wasting all that ink and all that time and, you know, all that, right? So people were pissed at me. They weren't, hey, let's get this guy some auditing and fix his problem. No. Auditing is a reward for staff and Sea Org members. It's not something you generally get when you're in the doghouse. They might try a couple fixes on people who end up in ethics trouble every now and again, but for the most part, it's something it's a carrot that's held out to you as a reward, right? And so I was not going to be getting auditing for that. So no, nobody thought of that because it's not part of the thinking process when you're dealing with somebody who's out ethics or messing things up or an overt product maker, which is kind of how they were thinking of me. You know, the colorblind thing really came up almost by accident. See, at the same time that this was happening, they needed to replace someone over in the color printing area. And so, because there was the black and white printing, and then there was the color printing, and they needed another color printer, and they were considering maybe I could go over there and do that. And here I was in trouble for this, and they were like, well, okay, you're in trouble for this stuff, but again, just coincidentally, we need you to do color printing. And because I was going to go over to color printing, they were going to give me this color test to make sure that I was qualified to be a color printer. And it was through that we discovered I had a color blindness issue, which then explained why I was messing up on the foil printing, right? These were two separate things that just happened to come together at the same time. And fortunately for me, because I didn't want to have anything to do with any of this crap, because I didn't want to be a printer, color printer, foil stamper, I didn't want to do any of this crap. I did not want to be at Bridge. So I wanted to go out and do recruitment. I wanted to get out of this place. And I thought going out on the road and recruiting people out at the orgs would be a far better utilization of my skill set as a Sea Org member and as a Scientologist. So that's what I was bucking for. And once they kind of determined the colorblind thing and connected the dots that I wasn't going to be able to continue as the machine that you did the foil stamping with was called a Sorolia. It was an Italian invention, right? And so I wasn't going to be a Sorolia operator, and I wasn't going to be a color printer. And so sending me out to do recruitment, okay, let's just get rid of this guy for a while and he can go out and do some recruitment. Turns out I was real good at it. And I put a bunch of people into Bridge over the next year. And so they kept me going out doing recruitment. So that's the whole story there of what happened with that. All right, so there you go. Okay, good. Let's go back over here to our questions from you guys. Yeah, I love Food Kitchen. That is interesting, isn't it? With the glasses with Mark Headley. Same thing, that's right. Okay, John asks, my fiance is a member of a Philippines-based religious cult group, Kingdom of Jesus Christ, led by FBI wanted Apollo Quiboloy. Can you offer any advice to help her realize the reality of the organization? Well, I'm not sure where you guys are located, John. So is she there in the Philippines, or is she, a remote member of this? I guess either way, the answer is going to be pretty similar, but I'm going to refer you to the interview that I did with Pat Ryan recently on my Speaking of Cults podcast for the very complete answer to this question, because we really covered a lot in there. I'm going to refer you to a methodology of talking or discussing things with people about their beliefs and ideas called street epistemology. I've done podcasts on this with a man named Anthony Magnabosco. You can look up street epistemology and Anthony Magnabosco online, and you will find a wealth of resources about how to do this thing called street epistemology, which is basically using questions to inquire about a person's beliefs and how deeply they are held and why they hold those beliefs. What you're looking for, and this is your fiance, so you have a perfect right to have a deep-seated conversation about belief. Right? This shouldn't be an off-limits thing if this is somebody you're going to marry. So dig in, right? If you're going to live the rest of your life with this person, then you need to understand how and why they think the way they think. This is, for me, this is marriage 101. I am always, and I'm not, this is no comment on you, John, but just in a general sense, let me say, I am always absolutely shocked to hear about people who get married who don't even know their partner's parents, who don't know where they went to school, who don't know their education, who don't know their background, who don't know whether they were married before, whether they have had kids before. They don't know anything about this person, and they jump into a marriage. It's mind-numbingly stupid to do something like that. You're spending the rest of your life with this person. You should know before you go, right? And so when it comes to stuff like this, right, you have every right to dig in and find out where this person's coming from. And you want to know, basically what you're trying to figure out or determine is why. Why is this person so wrapped up in this kingdom of Jesus Christ? What's the appeal? What is it about it that she thinks is so, and I'm assuming it's a she here. Of course, it could be a he, you know, my fiance. Oh, no, you said her. Okay, good. No, she. Okay, so you basically want to figure out or find out from her why she thinks that the kingdom of Jesus Christ is the group for her. And don't assume you know. Until she tells you, you don't know. You cannot be hostile or antagonistic with her about that. You can't be mad or pissy or, you know, don't you get it? This guy's wanted by the FBI. That isn't gonna help. Not at all. Don't even try that approach, right? You don't want to get mad. You don't want to be, you know, mean about it. I've spoken before, I'll say again, right? People's closely held, deeply held beliefs are in a thought fortress in their mind. Those walls of their thought fortress of belief are impenetrable to your battering rams. You're never, ever going to hammer them down. You have to get the person to open the door and invite you in. So you do that with questioning and interest and real curiosity. You really want to understand, if this is somebody you're going to marry, you want to know why this has so much appeal to them. And once you have it figured out as to why they think this is so important to them, then you may be able to, that might open a door for you to figure out what problem are they trying to solve? What issue is it that this belief resolves for them? What emotional components of their personality, what emotional needs do they have that this is the answer to? Because generally speaking, and maybe this isn't like 100% across the boards for every single person, because there are other reasons people join cults than just fulfillment of emotional needs. But, you know, not too many other reasons, right? I mean, for example, psychopaths join cults because they see this as a place where they can whet their appetites on others. I doubt your fiance is a psychopath, right? Statistically speaking, she probably isn't. So she's probably not part of this group because she can't wait to abuse other people in it, right? But some people join cults because that's what they want. But most of the time when it has appeal to them, especially of a religious nature, it's because it's fulfilling some need they have. It's filling a hole in themselves. And you want to understand what that, why does that hole exist and what's it made up of, right? Is it community? Is it purpose? Is it direction in life? Is it, you know, morality? Does it offer a future that appeals to her for some reason? Is there, you know, a particular interpretation of the Christian mythos that this kingdom of Jesus Christ offers that other churches don't, that just really makes sense to her? Right? What is it about that makes so much sense? You know, like, you're gonna have to really kind of dig in a little bit without making it a thing that you're trying to deconvert her. That shouldn't be the point of the conversation, at least not to start with, right? It's not, I'm going to change your mind, right? That's not going to get you invited into that thought fortress, is it? Right? Because people don't want to change their mind, especially when they're committed to a belief set. And only after you fully get it and understand it would it be possible for you to then have an honest conversation about, okay, well, this is why, and so now, is this the only thing that can fill that for you? I mean, are there other alternatives to this? Is there something else, some other group, some other belief set that it doesn't belong to somebody who's wanted by the FBI? You know, I don't know, maybe. right? There's a lot of denominations of Christianity out there. Maybe there's a more benign version that she could ascribe to other than this Philippines-based one, right? I don't know what it is about the Philippines, but man, they got a lot of cults out there. I mean, I'm just constantly surprised by how many cults there are, right? Oh, okay, so she's in the Philippines and you're in the US. Oh, so you're gonna have to do this long distance? Oh God, that's rough. That's rough. You're gonna wanna do this in person. As much as possible, you're gonna wanna do this in person. It's hard to do this kind of thing over the phone or over a Zoom chat or something because they can always just hang up on you. You know, it's a little impersonal. You want to be right there with the person as much as if there's any way to make that happen so you can have that conversation. And it will probably be a series of them. It's not going to be a one and done. At least I will say that I wouldn't expect that. It's not impossible to deconvert someone in one conversation. I mean, John Atac's done it with Scientologists, apparently, but it's hard, right? Understand the challenge in front of you. It's not easy, okay? She's moving to the U.S. in a couple months. Great. Wait till she gets here. Plus, then she'll be distant from it. And it could well be that that distance all by itself separates her from it enough that she can start making her own questions, right? Because part of the conversation also needs to be, are there parts of this thing or aspects of the belief or the practice of this that she has a problem with? Right? There's maybe some chinks in that armor with, yeah, I don't really like this and this part. You know, I mean, I'm just making things up, but you know, I don't like the way that I have to, you know, carry a picture of Apollo around with me everywhere and a locket around my neck. You know, I don't know if that's a really appropriate thing to be doing. You know, like maybe she's already got some questions of her own. You'll only find out about that by letting her talk and giving her a safe space in which to do so. Right? So those are, for now, those are bits of advice I can give you about that. And yeah, get her here, then have those talks. You know, if you can. I mean, if it's life and limb or there's some like urgency to the situation where you gotta, you know, go out there or something, or you gotta get her here faster. It's a little bit of a tougher situation, right? But I don't know anything about this group, so I don't know if she's in actual danger out there. I have no idea. Like I said, that's a tougher one. Yeah, that's what I got for you today, right now on this. You can always write to me, of course. Okay. Oh, you said some more here about this. John also says, I wonder if you are aware of them, and if so, can offer some guidance or approach for me to take so that she may see the reality of and their misguided and manipulative teachings. Yeah, everything I just said, right? But don't lead with, you know, look, this is a manipulative group and I got to talk you out of it. Don't try to avoid that kind of talk, right? Try. Do the best you can with that, right? Meet her where she's at, not where you're at, and you're gonna, you know, dominate her or overwhelm her with the facts that you know. You know what I mean? Like that's not the approach. It's you got to meet the person where they're at, especially if you're gonna have a long-term relationship with this person, right? I mean, your care, compassion, love for her is going to be the medium by which this works, if that makes sense. Okay. All right, let's carry on here. Young Matador asks, of all the Church of Scientology stories you've covered since you left the church, what's the one story or revelation that made you think, I never knew that? Ooh. Okay, I'll tell you the one that comes to mind right away because it was early on and it really, really blew me away. It had to do with Incom, the computer guys. I've talked about this before, but real fast. In 1995, 96 time period when I joined the Sea Org in June 1995. And INCOM, the International Network of Computer Organized Management, the division of Scientology that deals with computers and programs their computers and does all the stuff with their computers, they were under lockdown. And they were on a wing of the big blue building. There was a whole wing that was closed off, and there was a security guard there 24/7. And those people were sequestered. And no one could know why. No one, right? It was none of your damn business. Leave it alone. It's above your pay grade. Don't think about it. Don't ask about it. Just shut up, right? That whatever's happening there ain't your concern. That was the attitude that was communicated to me right away when I wondered what the hell was going on, right? And you learn in an environment like Scientology, in an authoritarian environment, and you guys see this in entertainment. I mean, we're watching Andor now, by the way, and it's really good. We're still only in the beginning episodes of season 1 right now, but how the Imperial Order is represented in that show Andor is a lot like the Sea Org operates, right? You have a place, your place is this, and you don't ask or question or, do other things about other areas. It's none of your goddamn business, right? That's that's very much the environment. So I never knew what the hell was going on there. And it went on for months. I mean, I think a year. I mean, it was a long time that those people were locked away there. And I didn't know any of them personally. I didn't know anything about INCOM at that time when I first got in the Sea Org. Years later, I met some people and interacted with INCOM because I was a computer guy and I wanted to go to INCOM, and they kind of liked me, but I wasn't qualified to go there. Thank God. Yeah, because I could still be in the Sea Org if I'd ended up in INCOM. Things could have been wildly different for me if I'd ended up there. So anyway, my point is that when I first got out of Scientology, like within the first month of looking at the internet and going down the internet rabbit hole, I got the whole story on what the security breach was that had sort of enacted this sequestering and caused the lockdown. And it was this low-level INCOM staffer who was arguing or trying to argue with people on the internet on the message boards, and had copied and uploaded to those message boards, if I'm remembering this right, information from within INCOM, right, from the INCOM servers. And everything was on those servers, like all the issues, all the confidential stuff, like really sensitive shit was on those servers. And this guy had full access. And this is back in the, mid 90s, before there was such an awareness of internet security and how all that stuff works and doesn't work, and what all this stuff is. It was a very, very cloistered, small group of people at INCOM. There were not a lot of folks there. And so this security breach was like a big, big deal, right? That this confidential shit ended up on the internet and nobody knew where it came from. And they assumed that somebody had, had either hacked in, or there was some kind of operation done, because nobody assumed or thought right away that the leak came from inside, but it did. And that's what they found out, right? And this guy got in all kinds of trouble. But the whole story was laid out by a former INCOM person, or somebody who had been privy to all this information and had written up a whole article about it. And I was absolutely blown away by learning not only about that whole security leak and how it happened, but that was adjacent to what OSA had been doing at that same time period to go after people who were on the alt-religion Scientology message boards, the ARS days, if you remember or know anything about the 1990s and how Scientology was discussed on the internet. It was on these bulletin boards. and on this, specifically on this ARS bulletin board. And that's where the critics and ex-Scientologists were talking to each other. And this release, this leak happened there. And this was back when there were still just a handful of people who were fighting Scientology on the internet in any way. And OSA was still in a frame of mind where they were going to go after those people legally and raid their homes and shut them down, right? This was Arnie Lerma. There was another guy whose name I'm forgetting right now, who there was this operation called, it became known as Operation Bloody Butt, which is a horrible name, and it was a horrible thing that they did, right? And they got the cops involved, and they raided these people's houses and took their computers from them and stuff. Why? Because they were talking about Scientology on the internet, and they were sharing OT materials and stuff. And so the Scientology lawyers got active on that, and it was disgusting, right? It was really gross what Scientology did to, and what OSA specifically did to go after these people, right? So I learned all about that all at once, and it was like, what the? I mean, wow! Like, this was one of the first things. I'm trying to remember right now if I learned about this before or after I learned about the 77 raids, the 1977 raid on Scientology and the whole Snow White stuff. I think I learned about Bloody Butt and the Incom leak before I learned about Snow White. So this was huge to me, huge. Like, I had no idea what OSA had been up to right in front of me. I mean, it was right in front of the entire base. It was on a wing of the main building, and they just went about their business, you know, imprisoning these people, because none of those Incom staff could leave or go anywhere or do anything. Their meals were being brought up to them and stuff. I mean, for like a year and a half, this went on. All these reports going up to Miscavige, all these people being checked and, you know, investigated, trying to find out about this leak, you know. I had no idea that was what my church had been up to, you know. So that was one of the big first, you know, kind of moments for me. And then, of course, you know, Snow White made that whole thing look like child's play. I mean, learning about the infiltration of Canadian, American, British government offices, it really hit me hardest when I read that it was the Church of Scientology that engaged in the most extensive domestic intelligence operation ever carried out against the U.S. government, right, by a private entity. I mean, I was blown away, absolutely blown away by the hubris, the arrogance, the stupidity of OSA, of the GO, I should say at the time, right, the Guardian's office, to do what they did, you know, and that had been happening while I was growing up in Scientology, while my parents were working and sacrificing for Scientology, and during a period when Scientology was experiencing its biggest growth period ever, was in the late 1970s. Dennis Erwick, that's it. Thank you. That's right, Dennis Erwick. Love Food Kitchen, you are awesome today. Thank you. Yeah, Dennis Erwick was the one whose home got raided. Arnie Lerma as well. Those people, when I say, you know, again, those are two names that when I say I'm standing on the shoulders of giants who have gone before me in Scientology criticism and taken real harsh hits for doing so, those are the kind of people I'm talking about, right? I mean, imagine you're sitting here criticizing Scientology and sharing the OT3 story, and the fucking police come and raid your house and take all your computers away from you. That's what these guys had to go through. And the legal costs were astronomical for them to fight it. Because this was in the 1990s when nobody knew what Scientology was really about. Nobody. Right? There was no like support system. There was no Aftermath Foundation. There was no Anonymous. That hadn't happened yet. These people took it repeatedly in the gut from OSA. Right? I mean, in a way that it's beyond words. You know, these people acted heroically to try to expose Scientology, and we're at the blunt end of the hammer, so to speak. You know. Yeah, it was the bloody butt thing is I should pull that whole thing up and brief you guys on that sometime. I should pull up all the articles and stuff and do a little thing on that. I'll do that. Let me note that down because it's a story. It is it is a story and a half. All right, so we got Salt Path and we got Bloody Butt. Man, yeah, what the church used to be able to get away with is shocking. Shocking, you know. Yeah, they deserve, they very, very, very much, the Church of Scientology has earned its reputation as an authoritarian psychological enslavement operation. You know, they really have. Okay. Let us do let's go ahead and pop that off of there, and let's go back over here to our third question. Pop this up on the screen here. Make sure I got the right one. Yeah, good. All right, Joe DeCeppo asked, throughout history, many totalitarian leaders have employed tasters who will try their food before it's served to check for poison. As dictators become more and more paranoid, they often also have them. Are you aware of David Miscavige having anything like this? What I'm aware of is that David Miscavige has a personal chef. And I believe that's how he solves that problem, is he has vetted people making his food. I don't think he, stops and picks up a Big Mac or anything very often. So I think he's, eating food that always comes from sources he's vetted and trusts. And so I think that's how he deals with that. Pretty simple answer, but I think that's about the long and short of it. Actually, yeah. Yeah, I'll just say that. All right, let's go back to the host and chat here. And the next question from Vernon. What do you think of Trump threatening to take away Rosie O'Donnell's American citizenship because she reveals who he is and criticizes him? She now lives in Ireland. Should Americans be worried? Well, yes, Americans should be worried about any United States president who, one, is punching down so far because his fragile, tiny, baby-like ego cannot deal with criticism. That is the thing to be concerned about. The specifics of Rosie O'Donnell do not matter at all. Rosie O'Donnell is a perfectly wonderful person who gets to say whatever she wants to say and has apparently American or dual citizenship, and she moved over to Ireland, and good for her. She can do whatever she wants, right? And as an American citizen, she can say whatever the fuck she wants about our president or our systems, and should in no way, shape, or form be punished, harassed, or otherwise bothered by anyone in our government for what she is saying. Period. That's called the First fucking Amendment. And I am, obviously, profanely pissed off about the fact that this is some kind of controversy, that there are American citizens who are so wrapped up in their cult thinking when it comes to Trump that they think this is something that is justifiable for a president, the most powerful man in the most powerful office, I should say, on this planet, to have any attention at all, to have such a fragile baby ego that he is bothered personally and directly by what some celebrity who lives in another country has to say about him, it's catastrophically, it defies words for me. That this is even a thing that is happening, that this is a reality in our world, is beyond words. The President of the United States has duties and functions that are of such vast importance to the well-being of everybody on this planet because of the power that this country has and the power that office represents. Donald Trump couldn't give a fuck about any of that. And to watch a man-child of his stature, right, of his tiny little stature, make a public spectacle and then use or threaten to use the power of his office and the entire machinery that operates below him to strip a citizen of their citizenship over such a minuscule, stupid issue. It's mind-numbing. The implications of that, the downstream consequences and you know, of that, of just the fact that that's happening, regardless of whether he actually acts on any of that, that's not the important part right now. The fact that this is even happening should alarm every single American. And the fact that this guy has a cult of personality and people who will not question anything he does, while he literally strips them of their medical and protections, taxes them more, takes from them their assets, strips them of their rights, has his goons running around this country, throwing people into vans and shipping them off to an American concentration camp in Florida, that these goons, these ghouls, are going and taking pictures at. I'm talking about his voters. I'm talking about his base. These people should be, oh man, they should be so ashamed of themselves. It's disgusting. I just don't even have words, right? So, you know, you asked for my take on this, you know, should Americans be worried? Fuck yeah, Americans should be worried. Absolutely, they should be worried. When the President of the United States cares about what you think about him, you should be very, very, very worried. Because there is no one else in this world who can do more damage to you personally than that man. If he takes a personal interest in you, I mean, what Scientology can do to you is child's play compared to what Donald Trump could do to you, and is willing to do to you in public, in front of everybody. Like he said himself, I could go shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue, right? He knows he can do that and get away with it. He's amazed that he can do that. He himself is blown away by the fact that people are checked out enough from what this country actually is and what it's about, so as to empower him to be able to do that. He laughs at his followers. He thinks they're a bunch of idiots. He thinks that. He understands them. He understands who they are and why they are that way, right? And he takes advantage of it day after day after day. And people who stand up to him and say, fuck you, you're a piece of shit, right? Like Rosie O'Donnell. look what's happening, right? He's going to make a public spectacle out of it because he's a tough guy. He's Superman. Did you see that meme? It's such a joke. It is such a joke. It's a parody of a satire of, of a joke. And it's idiocracy. This is how idiocracy happens. We all thought it was a funny movie. Ha ha, Terry Crews is a, goofball president who doesn't know anything, and American society, dumbing down. Yeah, guess what, right? It was a documentary. Electrolytes, it's what plants crave. Just look at the pseudoscience that gets shared on the internet, right? Go check out my interview with Dr. Jonathan Stay about that. It's so sad. It makes me so sad. I hate it. I hate this timeline. I hate everything about it. Okay, let's carry on here. I'll stop ranting. Vernon also asks, does the Sea Org exist in Mexico? Oh, yeah, absolutely it does. Latin America, LATAM, is a continental zone of Scientology. So they're based in Mexico City, I think, the Sea Org base that exists down there. There are Sea Org members down in Mexico, and they're based in Mexico City. There's a Continental Liaison Office, CLO, unit down there. And yeah, that's the answer to the question. Okay, and this, I believe, is going to be the last question we're going to have today. From the Waller. I live in Sweden and visited our local Scientology org in a rundown place outside of Stockholm. Was really sad. Do you have any encounters with Swedish Scientologists or heard of them before? Well, yes, I was at the PAC base, and there were people from Sweden who were in Scientology and the Sea Org who were there. Not a bunch of people. I think I've met maybe a handful of Swedish Scientologists over the years, at least that I remember as, Swedish Scientologists. Always pleasant people. I always remarked about how interestingly calm, chill, pleasant they were. That was one thing that was noteworthy. I kind of, when you bookmarks, or you make your stereotypes of people, right? The Hungarians are the hardest working motherfuckers anywhere. Like that's a thing I learned in Scientology and the Sea Org, right? The Hungarian Scientologists, those guys are workhorses. The Israeli Scientologists, right? They'll argue with you about anything. They just love to argue, right? And Swedes, chill, rational, always pretty calm people. At least my experience of them, right? Now, I'm not at all, of course, saying that's how everybody in Sweden is. I'm just saying my experience of them in Scientology was that. I never met anybody from Sweden, a Swiss Scientologist who would lose their shit every day or would yell and scream at people or something. They resisted doing that. They were kind of like me that way. They didn't like doing that. It wasn't their thing. Yeah. SP Spanglish, good reference there. Love Food Kitchen. He's good on the whole Mexican thing. So that's what I can say about that. Not a lot, obviously. It's, I'm glad that there is not a big Swedish contingent of Scientologists. It's, it's not a huge thing. And I'm glad about that. But that's pretty much all I got on that one. All right. Okay. So that's what I got for you today. Had a good show. Thanks for coming around and watching me blabber on here. I'll be recording with Tony later tonight, and so you will see our After Scientology Straight Up and Vertical. I've got a couple other post-its of some other shows I'm going to be putting together. I don't know that I'm going to be doing any other live streams this week. I'm not sure yet. I'm trying to get some more stuff put together. But you guys know how I like to dive into stuff. Maybe maybe we'll do something on this bloody butt thing. Maybe I'll go through and find everything I can on that and put something together to tell you guys what that was about. Maybe we could do that on Tuesday or Thursday or something. Depends on how my week goes. But But otherwise, thank you very much for coming around and watching me blabber on here. I always appreciate your viewership and your questions and support and everything. And I'll see you guys soon. All right. Bye-bye.